Hi everyone, I hope you are well. I am Lynette Purves and I am the current chair of the 2050 Climate Group. I first got involved with the 2050 Climate Group back in 2015 as a participant on our first Young Leaders Development Programme. I've stayed involved as a volunteer ever since, and today I'm going to be talking to you about COP. Now, at the 2050 Climate Group, we have been hugely privileged not only to have attended, but also have presented at 4 out of the last 5 COPs. And so, with the exciting news that the UK is going to be hosting COP26, I thought I would share with you, first of all, an introduction to COP. What is it? Who goes? Why is it important? Where is it held and when? Secondly, I'll share some of 2050 Climate Group's experiences of attending COP. Lastly, I'll share what we know so far about the upcoming COP26, including some ideas for how you can engage. For almost 3 decades, world governments have met every year to forge a global response to the climate emergency. The name given to that meeting is COP, which stands for Conference of the Parties. The parties are the almost 200 nations and territories that have ratified the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, or to use its acronym, the UNFCCC. Ratification of the UNFCCC has made the parties treaty-bound to avoid dangerous climate change and to find ways to reduce global emissions in an equitable way. COP is where the parties meet to negotiate and agree the specifics of how to do this. Agreement can only be made by consensus of all the parties. Whilst this takes a lot of time and effort, it means that agreements reached at COP, such as the Paris Agreement, have authority globally. COP first took place in Berlin in 1995 and has met annually ever since in different locations around the world. COP26 will be the 26th COP and will be hosted by the UK. So, is COP26 important?
Yes!
It's important because scientifically and politically, COP26 is being described as humanity's last chance to do something meaningful about climate change. It is seen as particularly important because COP25 in Madrid last year left a raft of complex issues unresolved. A lot of the work that was meant to be completed in Madrid has been rolled over to COP26 instead. Meanwhile, outside the COP conference hall, global emissions are at an all-time high, and none of the big countries are even on track to meeting their obligations under the Paris Agreement. COP26 is also important for the UK as the host. It will be the biggest international summit the UK has ever hosted. It will bring together almost 200 global leaders and some 30,000 delegates. And it will put the UK on the international stage. As a Scottish charity, the 2050 Climate Group are, of course, particularly excited that COP is due to be held in Glasgow. Our members of our network have previously travelled far and wide to attend COP. I remember our own journey to COP23, all by train, from Edinburgh to Bonn, via London, Brussels and Cologne, and back again. To be honest, I loved every minute of it, and it's nothing compared to Greta Thunberg's 3-week journey across the Atlantic Ocean to attend COP25 in Chile. Poor Greta only had to hitch a lift back again when the venue changed to Madrid at the last minute. This time, it'll be great to have COP on our doorstep so that we can maximise attendance by those in our network and make the most out of this exciting opportunity. So what is 2050 Climate Group's previous experience of attending COPs? Our first COP was none other than COP21 in Paris in 2015, where all 195 parties agreed to adopt the first ever legally binding global climate change agreement. Our friends who attended tell us about the day the Paris Agreement was adopted. They say that thousands of people were cheering, clapping, singing, screaming, crying, yelling, torn between euphoria and utter disbelief at the magnitude of what had just been achieved. Our second COP experience could not have been more different. We arrived in Marrakesh the night before the conference opened, ready to give our presentation the following day. Imagine our terror when an IT mix-up meant that thousands of conference registrations, including ours, had disappeared. We feared the worst, but thankfully we managed to negotiate our way into the conference just in time to take to the stage and present our work. We assumed that things couldn't possibly get any more exciting for the rest of the conference. We were very wrong. A day later, we woke up to the news that Donald Trump had been elected US president. It was only 1 year after the Paris Agreement had been signed, and he was intending to withdraw the US from it. Walking into the conference that morning, it felt like the Dementors had sucked all the hope and happiness from the air. We went along to watch an American youth climate organization present on their work. But 15 minutes later, there was still no sign of them. "They're not coming," someone finally called out. "They're too shocked and upset to even get out of bed." A room full of people sat in silence. I looked at my 2050 climate group friends next to me. We nodded knowingly, and we made our way to the stage. "We're not who you were expecting to see here today," we said. "But we're guessing that, like us, you could probably do with some cheering up. So if you'd like to stick around, we'd love to share with you the inspiring things the young people of Scotland are doing in the fight against climate change." And so, we presented at COP22 for a second time. The following year was COP23 in Bonn. This experience was particularly exciting for me as it was the first time we had accreditation for the Blue Zone. You see, COPs are organised into two areas, known as zones. There's the inner zone, known as the Blue Zone, and the outer zone, known as the Green Zone. The two zones are usually in different venues, physically separated, but located very close together, usually only a short walk away. The inner Blue Zone is handed over to and controlled by the UN for the duration of the 2-week conference. It becomes international territory and falls under international law. It is within the Blue Zone where the international negotiations take place. Conference rooms filled with countries' delegated negotiators, negotiating every clause and comma of the UN agreements. It lies beyond the security cordon, and only those with UN accreditation can enter. The Blue Zone also hosts the COP's opening and closing ceremonies, and speeches from VIP and celebrity speakers. Speaking in the Blue Zone, you might expect to see Greta Thunberg, Barack Obama, or Arnold Schwarzenegger, among many, many more. The other zone is called the Green Zone. It is publicly accessible and offers a platform for civil society, youth organisations, businesses and others to showcase their activities and have their voices heard. It's within the Green Zone that the 2050 Climate Group have previously presented on our work. Within the Green Zone, you can expect to be dazzled by exhibitions, talks and panels, art, music and dancing. You can expect to experience the latest low-carbon technologies, low-carbon transport and low-carbon treats. And you can expect to feel pretty overwhelmed by it all, to be honest. Always wanting to be in at least 10 different places, like being at a massive music festival and wanting to experience the headliners, the newcomers and the beer tent all at once. Although overwhelming, COPs have always made me feel optimistic too. Have you ever had days where you think, solving climate change is just too difficult? What is the point in even trying? Well, I used to. But then, at COPs, I experienced the whole world coming together to solve the climate crisis together. And that gave me cause for optimism. So, what do we know so far about COP26? And how can you get involved? COP26 was originally due to take place in November 2020, but has been postponed due to the global coronavirus pandemic. When we last spoke with the UK government earlier this month, they said that the new date is likely to be announced in June 2020. They also said that, all going well, COP26 is likely to be held sometime between May and November 2021. It's expected that the Blue Zone, where the negotiations will take place, will be held within the Glasgow SEC, or the Scottish Event Campus, to give it its full name. As for the publicly accessible Green Zone, it's expected to be held just across the water within the Glasgow Science Centre. And outside the official blue and green zones, there's expected to be a huge programme of unofficial events taking place all across Glasgow, all across Scotland, and all across the UK. These will be organised by a very wide range of organisations, businesses and individuals. And they will range from conferences, dinners and networking events to rallies, marches and protests. So, with so much going on, how can you get involved? Lots of ways! Here are just some examples. You can keep informed about what is going on through us, the 2050 Climate Group. Be sure to sign up to our email mailing list and follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram so we can keep you updated. We're delighted to be one of the few Scottish organisations who has secured accreditation for the Blue Zone, and we look forward to sharing our thoughts and experiences right from the heart of COP. We're also planning to run our own COP-themed Youth Climate Summit in the run-up, and we look forward to a number of you hopefully joining us there. As well as getting involved in our activities, we would encourage you to collaborate with the huge number of other organisations who also have their own exciting plans for COP26. For example, we understand that Youngo, the Youth Climate Coalition, Young Scot, YouthLink, Youth for Nature, Fridays for Future, the EAUC, Scottish Renewables and the Royal Geographical Society all have plans to get involved, to name but a few. We would also encourage you to register to attend the Green Zone if you can. The conference will run for about 2 weeks, and you can usually attend on whichever days you wish. From our past experience, we find that you just need to register in advance and bring photo ID with you on the day. Just FYI, the middle weekend and the second week are usually the busiest, with around 15,000 people expected to attend on the busiest day. Last but not least, we'd encourage you to get involved in shaping the plans for the Green Zone. Plans are still at an early stage, but we know from our discussions with the UK government that they want the Green Zone to be as inclusive as possible. They're looking for contributions from everyone: youth groups, academia, business, civil society, trade unions, Indigenous communities, the list goes on. They are also interested in hearing what we'd like to see within the Green Zone to make it as engaging and informative as possible. And they are looking for people, particularly young people, to showcase their activities on the stages and in the exhibition areas. Have you been involved in any exciting climate projects? Are you particularly proud of any climate actions you've contributed to, whether in your personal life, professional life, or within your political sphere? Have you got an entrepreneurial idea? If any of these ideas for engaging with COP spark your interest, feel free to let us know and we'll happily support you in any way that we can. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something new. And if you have any questions at all, then please do not hesitate to get in touch.